Okay. Hello, this is episode 27 of the Kung Fu Life podcast, and I'm your host, Leo. So, lessons learned for today. Not really lessons learned, just a history lesson, I guess, maybe. I used to stutter pretty bad. You might have noticed it in this podcast. I'll still do a little stutter here and there, actually fairly regularly still, but I actually went through 6 years of speech therapy, and I could not pronounce R's. I think that was it. I think it was R's and the stuttering problem. I think that was the main thing, but it took me 6 years of speech therapy to get through it. So, and as you can see, I still stutter sometimes, even in the podcast. And sometimes I won't edit it out just because, honestly, it's too difficult to edit it out because the stutter is so close together. I just feel like it's a waste of my time. Like, see, I just stuttered right there. And it's mainly with those words like I, or when I'm starting a sentence off. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be working on in this podcast as well, is getting rid of that habit. And I think I probably had gotten rid of it prior, but I ended up falling back into it over time. So, yeah. So there that is. So if you were wondering if I had a stutter problem before, then yes, you were right. Anyways, this is going to be part 7 of the Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity by Daniel P. Reed. And this is going to be a short one because I'm running out of time this month. So I'm hoping that this is only going to be 18 minutes at most because that's the amount of time that I have left. If not, then oh well. But hopefully I can make it happen. So let's get started then. Alright, this is a small section. So this is called the Dynamic Duo Today. Obviously referring to the yin and yang idea. Yin and yang, perhaps the most ancient Chinese idea, or perhaps the most ancient Chinese idea on record, remain intricately involved in the daily life of Chinese people today. Chinese architects consult Taoist geomancers prior to constructing skyscrapers. Chinese doctors apply the system in diagnosing and treating patients. Chinese chefs balance ingredients and harmonize flavors according to their natural affinities, and so forth. Perhaps one reason Chinese students today excel so remarkably in modern quantum theory and nuclear physics is that they already possess an inherent understanding of yin and yang, which is precisely the direction modern physics is taking. I'd be interested to look into that further because this book was actually written in, I think, 1989. So there might be even more examples today. While most Western scientists continue to ignore the ancient Chinese theory of yin and yang, the few with sufficient imagination to explore the field with unbiased objectivity have been consistently amazed by its accuracy. Sully de Morant, I'm butchering that, of course, the French consul in Shanghai who introduced Chinese acupuncture to Europe, wrote in 1919, "The Chinese call the positive energy yang and attribute its origin to the sun and stars. The negative energy is called yin, and they attribute its origin to earth." How could the ancient Chinese, for these are ideas reproduced from works that date from the 28th century BC, have perceived these forces and under the name yang energy distinguished positive atmospheric electricity and under the name yin energy the negative charge of the earth. The secret, of course, is that they proceeded from the fundamental Taoist premise that the human body is a microcosm of the universe. Taoist adepts gained deep understanding of universal cosmic forces by observing and feeling the effects within their own organs and energy networks. While Western science had to wait until the development of equipment sufficiently sensitive to observe, measure, and record light waves, electric pulses, and atomic particles, Taoists simply sat still doing nothing, long enough to awaken their own inner reflections of the universe. Fortunately for Western philosophy, Western science has finally broken through the barrier of dualism and is now beginning to confirm the traditional Taoist concepts of matter and energy. For example, Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared establishes a scientific fact that the ancient Taoist premise that matter and energy, what Taoists call essence and energy, are interchangeable. Magnetic fields function in accordance with yin and yang theory, and no electric current could flow through any conductor without the yin-yang polarity of positive and negative charges. In nuclear physics, we find yin and yang at work on the molecular level, for it is the push and pull of opposite forces that literally glues atomic particles together to form matter. But when these molecules are further taken apart, we suddenly discover that they cease to exist altogether as matter. Instead, they become vibrating bundles of pure energy, organized in certain patterns that give the illusion of solidarity when viewed from a distance. This fact takes some of the mystery out of the ancient Taoist and Buddhist tenet, form is void and void is form. For we see that, as Einstein said, it's all relative to the observer's viewpoint. When form is taken down to its ultimate constituents, we find nothing but void. When the pure energy of the void is closed, organized in rhythmic patterns, it begins to appear and function as form. Yin and yang are ever present in modern life, but we usually fail to recognize them. The airplane you ride across continents and oceans moves forward due to the principle of jet propulsion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Thus, the forward motion is nothing more than a relative byproduct of the combustive thrust coming out of the back of the engines. Modern nutritional science speaks of the vital importance of a balanced diet and of the biochemical reactions of certain food combinations in the stomach, such as acid alkaline, protein carbohydrate, sodium phosphorus, etc. This is nothing more than yin and yang in modern dress. The same principles the Chinese have been using to unlock the secrets of the universe ever since the heyday of the Yellow Emperor 5,000 years ago. The Chinese have a remarkable capacity for adopting and adapting foreign ways and adjusting themselves successfully to modern times, but they never do so at the expense of their own deep-seated Taoist beliefs. They regard their ancient traditions as complementary, not contradictory, to science and technology. This attitude is itself a complement of yin and yang, with traditional Taoist philosophy providing the intuitive yin element and modern Western science providing the rational yang. Together, yin and yang form the whole picture, and each prevents the other from distorting things in its own particular light. This complementary blend of traditional culture and modern science has been the key factor in the incredibly rapid and efficient modernization of East Asia over the past 40 years. If the Western world were to absorb Eastern philosophy as readily as the Eastern world has absorbed Western technology, it would work wonders for many modern Malays of contemporary urban lifestyles in industrialized Western societies. Though the terms though the terms of modern science and traditional Taoism may be different, the conclusions are absolutely the same. And since, as Lao Tzu said, the name which can be named is not the real name, we need not fuss about names and will focus instead on the forces and relationships to which they refer. So I thought that was a pretty interesting section to review. Just kind of giving you an up-to-date or a modern comparison to the yin-yang principles, to the ancient yin-yang principles. And you see that now, I think, even more. Because this book was, let me see, this book was published in, I'm pretty certain it was published in 1989, or written, anyways. Yeah, copyright 1989. So there's probably even more similarities, and you may have even heard of it. I know I've heard of different doctors, Western doctors, adopting Eastern practices and thoughts and ideas. And in fact, I have one of my students is actually looking into that, to something similar to that. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds, and it makes a lot of sense. And I really like the part where they were talking about the Eastern Taoist philosophies being the yin and the Western philosophies being the yang. I mean, that's just really cool. And obviously we think about the yin yang theories in martial arts, and it's mainly from my perspective growing up. I always thought of yin yang as a martial arts symbol, as the yin yang symbol as a martial arts symbol, probably because of Bruce Lee and and his whole Jeet Kune Do, and he had that in there. So I'm sure that was a big part of it, but I never had realized until later in life that it was more than that. That it was more than just the principles or representing martial arts principles. So that's one of the reasons why I thought that this book would be a great book to review in this podcast, and I'll review some of the other stuff as well. I was only going to do the intro, but now I'm going to do a few of the other sections because it has some really cool breathing information about breathing that goes exactly along with martial arts. I mean, obviously, it's breathing goes hand in hand with everything, really. But anyways, so that's it for today. Muay Thai Clan news. There is going to be a Detroit workshop on Saturday, February 27th. It is an online workshop. It's called Forms for Fighting, or Dar Hung Jong. Starts at 10 a.m. I'll have a link to it, to the sign up in the show notes. So if you're interested in that, it's open to all Muay Thai Clan members. And I think that's it. I don't think it's open to the public, the general public. But if you're not a Muay Thai member clan, then join a Muay Thai school and go to the workshop. It should be really good. And if you want to support this podcast, then click the link in the episode notes to support via PayPal. Sign up for my email list on the Kung Fu of Louisville website. Very easy. It's on the homepage, just kungfulouisville.com, and put your email in the box. Like the Facebook, rate the episodes, do all that other stuff if you feel like it, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next time.